let's go to federal politics, because today you've seen two senators, one ex-senator, Bob Day, another current senator, the One Nation, Rod Culleton, now facing the High Court. And what you had today was Pauline Hanson coming out and saying that Senator Rod Culleton must be referred to the High Court despite her loyalty to him to this point in time.
My fellow colleagues and I support Mr Culleton, Senator Culleton, but we have seen on too many occasions politicians in this place and the other place who have not been accountable to the Australian people, and I will not stand here and be of the same ilk. I believe that it should go to the High Court to make the ruling on this matter, and I hope their findings are, and I would dearly love to see Senator Culleton take his place here again as One Nation Senator.
OK, so let's now go to Rod Culleton talking about fighting on this, basically out of his Facebook page this morning as well.
I am really disappointed that, in a sense, the government has picked a fight with me to now start pushing me into the highest court of the land. But anyway, I'll do the Muhammad Ali. I'll just go out and hopefully take it out in the 8th round today and do my best.
Well, he might have to go 12 rounds now because without the support of Pauline Hanson, he loses one of his most important backers. As I said, it's not the only one. The former Senator Bob Day, who we explained resigned last week, also is going to be referred to the High Court in regards to having used a property as his electoral office that he appears to have had an interest in. Now, today, Bill Shorten, in question time, asked the Prime Minister, Malcolm Turnbull, if he's satisfied the government behaved appropriately in relation to Bob Day and to Rod Culleton.
The honourable member opposite, filled with sanctimony, filled with humbug, filled with all of his claims of overreach. What we have seen here is a government dealing with this matter diligently and with integrity. And yet what he has done is personally handpicked to the Senate Kimberley Kitchen, who was referred to the Commonwealth Director of Public Prosecutions for consideration to be charged with serious offences.
Do not ever say that politics cannot be a dirty game, and certainly that's where it is right now. However, there is another issue that still comes up, and that is the reason why you voted into the federal election in July this year, and that is the bill for the Australian Building and Construction Commission. There is also a second one, which is the gay marriage plebiscite, which is right now making its way through the Senate, likely to be rejected. Now, what you've got is a situation with the Australian Building and Construction Commission, which is why you went to the polls, is it really hangs in the balance without Bob Day there, and certainly also without the necessary guaranteed support of the Liberal Democrat Senator David Leyonhjelm, who you might remember wanted some significant changes over a deal on gun imports. Let's now go to that senator who's on the line. Many thanks for your time, David.
Hello, Ross.
Tell me exactly where you sit in regards to the ABCC bill, because fundamentally, from what I can see, you are in favour of having the Australian Building and Construction Commission come back. Is it simply not a case for you to say, well, that's OK, let's vote for it, let's get it on and away we go?
Well, what I'm in favour of is dealing with thuggery and illegal activity that's occurring in the building industry. I certainly don't deny the need to control that, and something needs to be done about it. There's a question about whether or not the ABCC bill is the right way to deal with that. Some people say it is, some people say it isn't, some people say there's a different way of going about it. Now, also the ABCC bill contains some rather unsavoury aspects for somebody who is very much in favour of individual rights and freedom. For example, it involves a reverse onus of proof and removes the right to silence. Now, they are both fundamental rights as far as I'm concerned. So the question that I'm working on, I suppose, and discussing with the government is whether we can deal with the thuggery in the building industry and in particular the CFMEU's behaviour in a way that doesn't involve a substantial loss of rights.
But what you're saying is if that ABCC bill went into the Senate right now, you would say no. Is that pretty much it?
That, if it was there today, that's my position, yes. So what I'm talking to the government about now is, well, can you fix the bill? And my advice so far is that perhaps not, that it wouldn't work, it wouldn't do what the government wants it to do without the elements in it that I don't like. So that's one consideration. Another consideration is whether there's a sort of an offset improvement in rights that can be made somewhere else.
Okay.
So there's no net reduction in individual rights and liberties. Now that's a bit of a plan B. But, I'm mindful of the fact that, as I said, the building industry does need to be cleaned up.
And from your estimation, how does the change in Bob Day's position in the Senate, plus also Rod Culleton's position in the Senate, how does that sit in terms of where the numbers would look for the government right now? Does it favour the government? Does it not favour the government?
No, it makes it a little more difficult for the government. When both Senators Day and Culleton were in the Senate, and so in other words a full quota of people, the government needed 9 out of 11 crossbenchers in order to have a majority in the Senate. With those two gone, it requires a majority of 8 out of 9. So, in other words, there can only be one of the crossbenchers who doesn't vote with it. Now, the Jackie Lambie from Tasmania votes with the Labor Party almost all the time these days. So she's a lost cause as far as the government is concerned. So that basically requires all the other crossbench senators need to be on board for the government to get its numbers.
And do you think it's reasonable that as you negotiate on a round of other things such as the Racial Discrimination Act, which a lot of people are very sympathetic to, the 18C, we spoke about that last week, the Queensland University of Technology case being thrown out, is it a situation where, say, for example, trying to negotiate on that Racial Discrimination Act and an amendment to that, in favour of trying to get your support on the ABCC with the necessary changes that you would like, is that a reasonable way to do business in the Senate?
Well, doing business in the Senate is always a negotiation. The government very rarely in the history of the Senate has had a majority, so there's always dealing and negotiation that goes on. If 18C was to be repealed, that would increase our freedom of speech. That would be something that I would be very strongly in favour of. It improves our rights and freedoms. I would regard that as a possible offset for losing some rights and freedoms in the context of the ABCC. So that's the sort of thing I'm looking for. The only thing is I don't think the government at the moment has the numbers to repeal Section 18C. So it's a question of whether that's a realistic trade-off. I've said to the government, if you can think of some other ways in which we can improve individual rights and freedoms as an offset, then I'll entertain that instead of 18C. But if we did get an amendment to, or a repeal of 18C through, that would be the sort of thing I'm looking for.
There you go, David Leyonhjelm, our Senator, and one of those key votes in our upper house of Parliament that will allow those bills to get through or not. As I say, without those votes, the government, again, with its legislation, is going to be pretty much stuck. And many thanks for your time, David.